Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Atrey Adhya Chatterjee from GD Binani PG College, Mirzapur, Uttar Pradesh. Today we are going to talk on the module Case Studies of Representation of Women in some Landmark Plays in Hindi Theatre under the paper Women, Theatre and Fine Arts. The objective of this paper is to study the role and representation of women in some landmark plays in Hindi theatre in context of three major Hindi plays. The first one, Ashad Ka Ek Din, is based on the life of poet Kalidasa and shows the struggle between the creative genius and the lived life of the man. His beloved Mallika, who apparently looks frail and weak, is actually the strongest character in the play. The second play, Aadhe Adhure, is one of the first plays in contemporary Hindi literature that very successfully captures the tensions, problems and psychological crises of modern day life. Its strength lies in its powerful language through which it displays the love-hate relationships that exist between man and woman. The third play, Dhruvaswamini, is a historical play in 3 acts, which revolves around the lives of 3 main characters: Dhruvaswamini, Ramagupt and Chandragupt. Although the characters are based in Indian history and recount the events of the Gupta period, the story of their lives also finds a resonance in modern times. All the 3 plays get their strength from their strong central female characters. Now, let us understand the introduction. For this paper, 3 plays have been taken up. Ashad Ka Ek Din, or One Day in the Month of Ashad, and Aadhe Adhure, or Halfway House by Mohan Rakesh, and Dhruvaswamini by Jayashankar Prasad. Each of the 3 plays are landmark plays from the point of view of giving a voice to the women characters in Hindi drama. Literature and theatre have always shared a deep and intrinsic relationship where each has inspired and drawn inspiration from the other. Mohan Rakesh is one of those writers who has successfully bridged this gap between literature and theatre.
Mohan Rakesh was born on the 8th of January 1925 in Amritsar, which was undivided Punjab at that time, and his original name was Madan Mohan Goglani. He was one of the pioneers of the Nai Kahani or New Story literary movement of Hindi literature in the 1950s. Ashad Ka Ek Din, published in 1958, is his debut play and is considered as one of the first modern Hindi plays. It won the award of the Best Play of the Year from Sangeet Natak Academy in 1959. After Bhartendu Harishchandra and Jayashankar Prasad, the name that shines most brightly on the firmament of Hindi theatre is that of Mohan Rakesh, and Ashad Ka Ek Din is considered as one of his greatest achievements. Ashad Ka Ek Din. The play is loosely based on the life of legendary Sanskrit poet Kalidas, who is supposed to have lived between 100 BC to 500 AD, and is a fictional take on certain historical events that took place at that time. The play takes its name from the first shloka or couplet of his epic poem Meghadutam, which begins with the words Ashadasya Prathama Divase, which means on the first day of Ashad. On that particular day of Ashad, when the mountain ranges or hills were all covered with clouds, Kalidas, a young, undiscovered, and unrecognized poet, and his beloved Mallika are enjoying the first rain of the season, standing atop a hill near the village temple. The actual physical rain also has symbolic significance. It is the rain of love, creativity, and positivity that drenches and energizes both Mallika and Kalidasa. It inspires the poet to capture this beauty in his poetry. The play is divided into three acts and basically deals with the challenges faced by Kalidas and Mallika, where they have to choose between personal happiness and professional success. On the one hand, there is Kalidas, who must leave Mallika behind and go away to the king's court in Ujjaini to be honored as the court poet if he wishes for any further development and recognition for his works, which he does on the insistence of Mallika. And on the other hand, we have Mallika, who keeps the flame of her love intact, even though the strain of doing so completely ravages her life. Where Kalidas chooses perfection in art, Mallika chooses perfection in life, and each is juxtaposed with the other. Although the play is based on Kalidas's life, one can easily see that this is an eternal question and dilemma faced by all artists, creative writers, poets, or painters in all ages. And this is what makes this play great because it transcends from the personal to the universal.
Mallika in Ashad Ka Ek Din is one of the strongest female characters that Hindi drama has ever produced. Structurally, the play is very well balanced. At the end of each of the three acts, Kalidas leaves Mallika behind. In the first act, when he goes away to Ujjaini to get his due recognition at the king's court. In the second act, when Kalidasa again visits his village after a few years on his way to Kashmir to attend to his administrative duties as King of Kashmir. And lastly, at the end of the play, when he suddenly leaves Mallika, whom he had come to meet after several years, realizing that there can be no meeting between the two. Kalidasa unfortunately realizes in the end that youth and love wait for none. Neither he nor Mallika are the same anymore. Their lives have moved apart and they cannot go back to pick up the threads again. Unfortunately, though Kalidas received honor, recognition, and fame after he left his homestead, his creativity deserted him as soon as he disconnected himself from his roots that had nourished his poetry. Priyangu Manjari, the king's daughter whom he marries, tries her best to recreate the ambience of his village, but fails to infuse the old enthusiasm that could reanimate his soul because she herself is not Mallika. The mother daughter duo Ambika and Mallika represent the two opposite poles of life. Ambika, the older woman, represents the practical aspect, where one thinks with the head, and Mallika represents the aesthetic and artistic aspect of life, where she feels with the heart and responds to life accordingly. So it is the practical world juxtaposed with the emotional, imaginative world of the artist. The injured fawn is also a symbolic image. The wounded baby deer symbolizes aesthetics, love, and compassion. The carefree life of Mallika and Kalidasa, of poetry and sensitivity that gets wounded and stung by the aggressive entry of the world of politics and practicality into these sylvan settings. This beautiful village in the lap of nature. Ironically, it is Kalidasa who tries his best to save the wounded deer, and thus, in a way, his own soul and creative spirit that exists beyond the harsh life
of practical realities, which has now started encroaching upon him. But unfortunately, though he is unable to save his own soul from this annihilation, just as she saves the baby deer from dying, she is also able to protect her own spirit from this encroachment. The baby deer is mentioned again in retrospect at the end of the third act, where Kalidas meets Mallika's baby daughter, whom his distractor Vilom sarcastically refers to another baby deer that probably has a very close resemblance with the poet himself, an intended derision that she may be a product of their past union. The characters of this play can be seen both as individuals and as representing different types of humanity. Besides Ambika and Mallika, who balance each other, the characters of Kalidas and Vilom are also to be seen as a foil to each other. Vilom literally means the opposite of. And in the play, this character typifies and illustrates all that Kalidas is not. He is the diametric opposite of the poet, the anti hero. Vilom is a failed poet who could not make a name for himself in the world on his own merit. Matul, Kalidasa's uncle, who taught him the rudimentary of the Sanskrit language, represents the poet as a mercenary, greedy and ambitious, but without the requisite merit. He too suffers due to his overarching ambition and greed. Vilom wants to possess Mallika for her beauty and youth, but has no quality to attract her. Therefore, he must assert himself aggressively and forces his entry into her life at a moment where she is vulnerable, as he is an evil opportunist. Vilom's very existence rests upon his ability to defeat Kalidas and oppose him, or act as a foil to him. Often we see him moving in stealthily at just the moment when he could deliver the maximum damage to Kalidasa's credibility and his personal life. Hence, he is unscrupulously taking advantage of Kalidasa's absence when the latter goes away to Ujjaini and is appointed as poet laureate by the king. Now the next drama, Aadhe Adhure. Mohan Rakesh's Aadhe Adhure or Halfway House was first published in the January-February 99 issues of the magazine Dharma Yug. It was first staged by a Delhi-based theatre group, Deshantar, in February 1969 and directed by film actor Om Shivpuri, who also played the male lead role. It is one of the plays in contemporary Hindi literature that very successfully captures the tensions, problems, and the psychological crises of modern day city life. Its strength lies in its powerful language, through which it displays the love hate relationships that exist between men and women. On one level, this play deals with social issues, and on another, it deals with the total psychological breakup of the home and hearth. The scene of action is a middle class household which has a tragic, melancholic air about it, where each member of the family is cut off from the other and they are all in a state of perpetual turmoil. It is just a house and not a home, and the family can hardly be called a family. It is a heterogeneous group of people living under the same roof, but totally disconnected from each other. Their aspirations, dreams, and wants are pulling them apart, and there is very little love or sympathy to hold them together. The play very successfully captures the angst and ennui of the modern urban milieu and the interpersonal relationships of each of the characters on multiple levels. The characters of this play are the man in the black suit, who is around 50 years of age with a cigar. He is the Sutradhar. Later, the same actor reappears in the role of all the other men characters. The first man, or Mahendranath, who is Savitri's husband, nearly 50 years of age, but already exhausted with the challenges of life. He lacks self-confidence
and is self effacing and evasive. The second man, or Singhania, Savitri's boss, a rich, successful professional who often goes on foreign tours, with a seen all, done that air, but still a little unconfident and anxious. The third man, or Jagmohan, suave, successful, fashionable and impeccably dressed, large hearted about partying and spending money on friends, very soft spoken, gentlemanly, and a chain smoker. And Savitri at one point wants to run away with him. The fourth man, or Juneja, he is quite a few years older than Mahendranath and a close friend of his, a businessman and Mahendranath's former business partner. Juneja knows Mahendranath since even before Savitri came into his life. That all the five men are actually the same man in different garbs reinforces the playwright's main argument that all men are basically the same with a different mask or for a different character, setting, and occasion, as Savitri very rightly points out near the end of the play.
Then there is Savitri, the most important female character. She is almost 40, no longer in the blush of youth, but still retains her beauty and smartness in spite of all the tribulations she has had to face in life. She is the sole breadwinner of the family. Then the older daughter Binny, almost 20, but far mature than her age. She ran away from home to marry Mohan and the only one close to Savitri. But even she keeps wondering as to what is so tragic about this family that clings to her even now and comes in the way of her happiness. The younger daughter, Kinni, around 13 to 14 years old, but tries to act much older. She is very bitter and rebellious and feels irritated with all her family members, a typical teenager. The son, Ashok, older than Binni and a failed undergraduate. He cuts photos of Hollywood heroines from magazines, an angry, frustrated, unemployed young man who has a girlfriend. Halfway House underlines the inherent incompleteness of human life. It shows that we are living half lives or adhe adhure, where even the desire for fulfillment is futile. That those who expect their lives or relationships to be perfect never end up happy or satisfied, for they keep hankering for more and more. Savitri is a woman with overarching ambitions, ultra-modern, and her expectations are unlimited. Inadvertently, she pushes her family into a vortex of desire. She drives her husband crazy and alienates him from the others. Savitri is frustrated and has become thoroughly bitter against her husband because he is a failure. She is unable to accept him as he is and expects him to be an epitome of perfection. In her desperation, she calls Jagmohan and decides to run away with him, but is finally unable to do so because the situation would have been primarily the same. It would not have been fundamentally different if she had married either Jagmohan or Juneja or anyone else for that matter. She would have done the same with them too. Thus, she has got herself into a vicious circle of psychological emptiness. There is so much anger and depression in the family that the very atmosphere is charged with negativity, and the unknowing angst and acrimony is choking the life out of them. The younger daughter, Kinni, has grown completely bitter at a very tender age and hates her family. She is a neglected child and has to face the ire of neighbors regarding her mother's numerous male friends. Sometimes her most basic needs, like a pair of new socks or a new exercise book, remain unfulfilled, and she has taken voyeuristic pleasure in subjects far beyond her age. For example, she takes interest in matters related to sex. The factor which Binni is unable to pinpoint, the reason behind her dissatisfaction, Something about this atmosphere that clings to her is exactly the sort of alienation each character in the play experiences in his or her own unique way. An alienation and isolation that is a part and parcel of modern man's life in a big city. Mahendranath has failed in each of his business ventures, and now at 50, he is a completely broken man who has totally lost his self confidence. Neither does anyone in his family have any respect for him. In an intense moment of overflowing emotions, he exclaims that he has become just a rubber stamp. When his wife rebukes him and says that a rubber stamp means power, position, and respect, and pray when, if at all, their family has ever got any of this from him, he immediately recants and says that perhaps he is worse than a rubber stamp. He is just a piece of rubber that everyone uses for omitting their mistakes and then throws away after using. The man in the black suit, or the Sutradhar, may be termed as every man or any man. The fact that the same man re enters each time as a different character reinforces the dramatist's contention that all men are basically the same, and so the characters are types rather than individuals. The play progresses in such a way that it is extremely difficult to say who the main character of the play is. Is it the Sutradhar, or Savitri, or the typical circumstances of this family, or the questions arising out of all these put together? The play ends without any definite answers, just as several questions remain unanswered in life. Adi Adhure was first published in February 1969, but it is perhaps even more relevant today than when it was written, and hence is a true classic of the modern age. It captures in very hard hitting language the aspirations and ambitions of a modern day woman who wants a complete man in her life. She yearns for success both in her personal and professional lives and ends up losing both, like quicksand out of her fingers. It is the tragedy of this woman who wants more and more and more from life. Now we come to Jayashankar Prasad. Jayashankar Prasad was born in Varanasi in the year 1890. He lost many of his near and dear ones to death at a very tender age, and these losses left a deep and indelible impact on his personality. Known as one of the precursors of Romanticism in Hindi poetry, he was deeply influenced by Shaivite and Buddhist philosophy, which is reflected in his writings. Dhruvaswamini, published in 1933, is a historical play written by Jayashankar Prasad in three acts, which revolves around the lives of three main characters: Dhruvaswamini, Ramagupta, and Chandragupta. Besides these three, the other characters that play an important part in supporting and carrying forward the main action are Shakaraj, Koma, Acharya Mihirdev, Mandakini, the Samanta Kumars, and Shikhar Swami. But although the characters are based in Indian history and recount events of the Gupta period, the story of their lives also finds a resonance in modern times. The play essentially deals with a particular event in the life of the great king Chandragupta. Samudragupta had two sons, Ramagupta and Chandragupta. Ramagupta, the elder son, was wicked, corrupt, selfish, lazy, and alcoholic, whereas Chandragupta, the younger brother, was his diametrically opposite: wise, courageous, loyal, and large hearted. Samudragupta had chosen his younger son, Chandragupta, as his rightful heir, and had also fixed up his marriage with Dhruvaswamini before his death. But as soon as he died, Ramagupta not only usurped his throne with the help of his wicked minister Shikhar Swami, but also married Dhruvaswamini, who was extremely beautiful and intelligent, thus depriving his younger brother from everything. Still, Chandragupta did not protest or raise any rebellion for the sake of peace and harmony in the kingdom. After declaring himself king, Ramagupta started off with his army in order to enlarge the boundaries of his empire just as his father Samudragupta had done before that. However, judging the incompetence of Ramagupta, the king of the neighboring Shaka kingdom, Shakaraj, perceived it as a golden opportunity and immediately invaded the Gupta kingdom.
Now, the third play, Dhruvaswamini, opens with the main character Dhruvaswamini, Ramagupta's wife, entering the stage with two of her waiting women behind the Gupta army camp. From the very first dialogue, we can see that she appreciates strength, power, and uprightness when she exclaims upon the Himalayas standing upright, unbending, and how the soft, tender creepers are bowing at its feet as if paying homage to it. She is bored and tired with all the battles and meaningless bloodshed. Since her marriage with Ramagupt, she has been very unhappy because her husband treats her more as a trophy or a booty won in war rather than a real woman, much less as a wife. He is always busy with warfare and his scheming ministers whom she cannot stand at all, so she feels neglected and lonely.
The real nature of Ramgupt has also been revealed to her, and she can see that he is a weakling who is involved with wine and women all the time. He is incapable of giving love to Dhruvaswamini, and his suspecting nature leads him to doubt her fidelity. He has planted spies around her to find out whether she secretly loves Chandragupta and is cheating upon him behind his back. Dhruvaswamini's heart yearns for the touch of a good man and her sight for any normal, able bodied human being, not these dwarfs, eunuchs, and half humans milling around in the camp. And the only complete man that she finds in this place is her brother in law Chandragupta. Now, as fate would have it, the Gupta camp gets news from home that the crown and the throne are in danger of falling into enemy hands as Shakaraj has captured the kingdom. Therefore, they must turn back immediately. But to their shock, they find that they have been surrounded on both sides by the Shaka army. The Guptas have only two options available, either to die fighting or to agree to their terms. The Shaka king, meanwhile, offers a mean and ignoble compromise. He will withdraw his troops if Ramagupta hands over the beautiful queen Dhruvaswamini to him. Any self-respecting man would have cringed in shame at such an offer, but the coward Ramgupt finds this to be the easiest solution. When Dhruvaswamini rightly protests at this shameless order, he tells her remorselessly that she is an object to be offered as a gift to others. Dhruvaswamini is shell-shocked and pleads that if not as his wife, then at least as a woman under the king's shelter, he must protect her honor. But her pleas fall on deaf ears, and she realizes that Ramgupta has never seen her as his better half. Feeling dejected and utterly helpless, she takes out her dagger to end her life there and then. When Chandragupta hears all this, he is shocked out of his wits, but comes out running with a very smart plan. He himself volunteers to go to Shakraj, disguised as Dhruvaswamini, because it is unthinkable to meekly hand over the Gupta queen to the enemy. But Dhruvaswamini will have none of it. She declares that if Chandragupta is trying to protect her honor, which is of no value to the king, then she too will accompany him as his handmaiden. And if they are found out, they will both die defending their name and honor. Ramgupta is overjoyed to hear this. He feels that it is like killing two birds with one stone. It will not only reveal whether there is anything between Dhruvaswamini and Chandragupta, but also if there was some truth in his suspicions, he will permanently get rid of them at one go. Because Chandragupta will surely get killed inside the enemy camp. And if at all they were victorious, then Ramgupta will get all the credits for this clever strategy. But he had thoroughly underestimated the valor of his younger brother Chandra. The Samanta Kumars who had accompanied him disguised as maids, Chandragupta killed Shakraj, but allowed safe passage to Koma, his beloved wife, and Acharya, her father. But unfortunately, as soon as news of this victory reached Ramagupta, he entered with his army and wreaked a bloodbath on the Shaka camp, in which both Koma and Acharya Mihirdev get killed. Dhruva Swamini cannot take this anymore and questions the very basis of our moral and social values. Why should a king abet murder and massacre? Her real nature shines through in this scene where she questions the Hindu religious scriptures, age old rituals, and long held beliefs. Why is a woman bound to a man without her consent only by the strength of a few Sanskrit shlokas? She questions the institution of marriage and refuses to stay married to Ramagupta any longer. Dhruv Swamini tells Mandakini that women have somehow internalized their servile position in society. The royal Purohit's observation that Dhruva Swamini and Ram Gupta's marriage was a mistake or wrongdoing is an equally loaded statement. He cites those very scriptures to state that a woman or a man is free to walk out of such an unhappy or unfulfilling relationship. This was a very dynamic reading of the Hindu scriptures and one which shows that the question of divorce had also been included into the institution of a Hindu marriage. Finally, in the end, Dhruva Swamini abandons Ramagupt and marries Chandragupt. In retaliation, when Ramgupt tries to stab Chandragupt, he is prevented by a Samant Kumar and instead he gets killed in the process. Chandragupt is crowned the new king. Jayashankar Prasad, through this play, shows how a woman can only be won through respect, love, and affection, not through willful subjugation. Also, how they should drop their shackles and realize their true independent natures. In this way, this play becomes a landmark and its heroine a pioneer of all times. Dhruva Swamini is one of the most powerfully drawn feminist characters in Hindi drama. The issues explored by Jayashankar Prasad remain relevant even today, if not more so. The playwright was obviously making a very interesting statement regarding the institution of marriage and the question of divorce, one which would open a can of worms. And this is one of the reasons why Dhruva Swamini became both hugely popular and equally controversial.
So, students, let's now summarize what we have learnt in this module. The first play, Ashad Ka Ek Din, is based on the life of the poet Kalidasa and shows the struggle between the creative genius and the lived life of the man. His beloved is Mallika, who apparently looks weak, is actually the strongest character. Mallika's mother Ambika is an image of the caring woman who is tied to her home, afraid to take risks, and Vilom, who is the opposite of Kalidas and acts as a foil, actually is able to bring out the strength of Mallika's character. Then the second play, Adhe Adhure, is one of the first plays in contemporary Hindi literature which has very successfully captured the tensions, problems and psychological crisis of modern day life, especially through the character of Savitri, who is the strong female character in the play. And its strength lies in its powerful language through which it displays the love-hate relationships that exist between men and women. We have also seen how all the male characters have been played by one single man, reinforcing Savitri's desperate observation in the end that all men are the same. And the third play, Dhruv Swamini, as a historical play in 3 acts, in which we have seen that the main characters are Dhruv Swamini, Ramagupta and Chandragupta. We have also seen that although the characters are based in Indian history and recount events of the Gupta period, the story of their lives also finds a resonance in modern times. Thank you.